Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are continuing our serialized analysis of the AI futures framework.
Yes, developed by Jaffar Humayoon.
Right. And if you joined us for the last deep dive, we started to really pull back the curtain on how artificial intelligence is shifting the fundamental unit economics of, well, the entire enterprise.
And just to ground everyone right at the top, because I think it's important to reiterate, AI futures is not a forecast.
It's not a crystal ball.
Exactly. It's a framework. It is a lens for what the source material calls speculative realism. We aren't predicting what will happen in 10 years. We are looking at the technology that currently exists in the wild to understand where the economy is going today.
Yeah, we're looking at the signals. So quickly recapping episode 8, Human to Token. We talked about how intelligence has shifted from being a uniquely human trait to a metered import.
Right, like electricity.
Right. And we saw how large firms are actively rewriting their operating systems. They are prioritizing autonomous inference, essentially. Machines figuring things out over human friction.
Which leads us directly into today's theme. Episode 9 of the framework, the token-based corporation.
The token-based corporation. Moving from the why of automation to the how of the balance sheet.
Yes. Today is all about structural compression. We are analyzing the transition from those massive, sprawling human hierarchies we're all used to into these lean, token-optimized architectures.
And I want to set the tone here before we really dive in. We are approaching this neutrally. This deep dive is not an accusation of corporate greed.
Right.
We aren't here to point fingers. This is an analysis of rational economic strategy in an era where the marginal cost of intelligence is approaching zero.
That's a crucial distinction. We're looking at how rational actors behave when the incentives change so drastically. So to really understand structural compression, I think we have to start with the before picture.
Okay, let's unpack the before. Let's talk about the end of vertical hierarchies. Because when we picture a massive engineering department at an MA scale company,
You hear Google's, Meta's, Microsoft's.
right, those giant tech firms, from the outside you just see the shiny campus. But structurally, it is a massive pyramid of roughly 1,000 people just to handle one major product line.
1,000 people. And it's a very specific mix. At the base, you have about 600 junior to mid-level developers.
The people writing the bulk of the boilerplate code.
Exactly. Then above them, you have 250 senior engineers. And because you have 850 people writing code, you need management. So you layer in about 100 engineering managers.
And then the directors above them.
Right, 30 directors. And woven throughout all of this, maybe 20 product managers trying to keep the ship steered in the right direction.
So it's incredibly heavy. High headcount, high coordination costs. It's people having meetings to prep for other meetings, building everything from scratch.
That's the legacy model. It's defined by human friction. Now, contrast that with what the framework calls the compressed org chart.
The after picture.
The after picture. That sprawling pyramid of 1,000 people, it gets compressed into a lean team of about 25.
25 people doing the work of 1,000.
That is the structural compression. But the composition of those 25 is entirely different. You don't have juniors. You have 15 principal-level engineers. We're talking Tier 3 and above, the absolute top-tier talent.
The heavy hitters.
Yes. Then you have 5 staff-level engineers focusing on DevOps and MLOps to keep the infrastructure running. And finally, 5 product or AI orchestrators.
Orchestrators. I really want to pause on that word because the fundamental nature of the work is shifting here, right? They aren't writers of code anymore.
They are composers.
Composers.
Right. They aren't sitting there typing out every single line of syntax. They are validating and orchestrating AI-generated prototypes.
So instead of writing a function, an engineer might spin up dozens of prototypes in a single week.
Using multi-agent workflows. You have an agent that writes the code, an agent that acts as a critic to test it, and self-testing modules that iterate on it until it works. The human composer just sets the parameters and validates the final output.
So they are managing the AI rather than managing a team of junior developers.
Exactly.
Okay, so logically, this sounds incredibly efficient. But we have to talk about the money. We need to unpack the math to see why a board of directors would sign off on blowing up their massive engineering department to build this pod of 25 people.
The financials are the driving force here. So let's look at the cost structure of that traditional 1,000-person model.
Walk us through the salary stack.
So those 600 junior and mid-level devs, that's about $108 million a year. The seniors add 65 million, managers are another 30 million, directors cost 12 million, and the PMs are about 5 million.
So you are sitting at roughly $220 million just in payroll.
Just for salaries, now add overhead. Real estate, security, equipment, software licenses, that adds about 20 million.
Which brings the total traditional cost to around $240 million per year for one product department.
Right. Now let's look at the AI-enabled cost structure, the compressed team of 25.
Hit me with a new ledger.
Those 15 principal engineers are expensive, yes. They cost about $6 million total. The staff engineers run about $1.5 million. The orchestrators are roughly $1.25 million.
So the human labor cost drops to under $9 million, but they have to pay for the AI.
Right. And this is the key differentiator, the cloud and API token budget. For this team, it runs about $3 million a year.
Wow.
So when you add it all up, including a vastly reduced overhead for remote or hybrid work, the total AI cost is about $15 million fully loaded.
$15 million compared to $240 million.
It is a savings of over 90%.
That is massive.
Hey.
It represents a fundamental shift in the type of cost, doesn't it? We are moving from a fixed labor cost,
The payroll.
right, the payroll that you have to pay every 2 weeks no matter what, to a variable utility cost.
Yeah.
The tokens.
It is functionality as a stream. You are paying for the output, not the seat. If you need more code, you buy more tokens. If you need less, you scale down the compute. You can't scale down human beings without massive friction, severance packages, and destroyed morale.
So from a CFO's perspective, this isn't just cheaper, it's infinitely more flexible.
It's optimized, but here's the thing. This compression doesn't just stop at the engineering department.
Right, because if you shrink the core engine by 90%, the chassis has to change too.
Exactly. The framework calls this the flattening of functional silos. The entire support shell of the company has to shrink proportionally.
Let's talk about HR and recruitment, because that feels like an obvious domino to fall.
In the old model, supporting 1,000 engineers meant you needed 50 to 100 recruiters, benefits admins, HR generalists. In the compressed model, you need 5 to 10 talent orchestrators.
5 to 10 people handling HR for the entire division. How does that even work?
Because AI is managing the curated talent pools, it's auto-generating the onboarding materials. If an employee has a question about a policy, they don't email an HR rep. They ask an internal AI that has ingested the entire company handbook.
So it's an 85% reduction in HR headcount alone. What about finance and accounting?
Finance actually undergoes a massive transformation. The old model relied on armies of analysts manually reconciling data across spreadsheets.
I think we all know those analysts working 80-hour weeks.
Right. But in the new model, AI handles real-time fraud detection. It handles reconciliation instantly. It can even draft a prep materials for earnings calls by parsing the data streams. The analyst role gets compressed into automated reporting.
So the people left in finance are just the strategic decision makers. They aren't crunching the numbers. They're asking the AI what the numbers mean.
Exactly.
Now, what about sales and marketing? Because sales has always been so reliant on the human touch, the relationships.
The relationship part remains. The closing part remains. But the prospecting, what they call the hunters in sales,
The cold outreach.
right, that shifts entirely to AI tools. AI handles the massive volume of outreach, writes personalized copy, responds to initial inquiries. The sales team just becomes a lean group of closers who navigate human nuance when the deal is actually ready to be signed.
So every single silo flattens. And that obviously impacts the physical space too. Facilities, IT.
The physical footprint basically disappears. You no longer need 5 floors of a downtown office building. You don't need cafeterias. You don't have massive hardware requirements or IT help desks constantly resetting passwords for 1,000 people.
The scale of this transformation is hard to wrap your head around. But looking at the aggregate data provided in the sources, if you take a traditional organization that costs roughly $345 million to run across all these departments,
Right.
it drops to $39 million.
39 million. And output speed actually increases anywhere from 5 to 50 times.
It's faster and it's cheaper. Which brings us to the boardroom reality. The why. Because a lot of people looking at this will say, this is too drastic, it's too risky to replace hundreds of people with API calls.
But you have to view this through the lens of a corporate board. They're looking at the token advantage.
Unpack the token advantage for us.
It's about granularity. A token isn't a salary, it's a consumable unit. So an HR question being answered costs 500 tokens. A full-stack web app prototype might cost 1 million tokens. Generating a financial forecast costs 20,000 tokens.
You only pay for exactly what you use.
And there is no attrition. Tokens don't quit. They don't take vacations. There is no downtime. It is frictionless deployment.
And that leads to margin expansion.
Yeah.
But there's also an external pressure here, isn't there? The framework mentions financial gravity.
Yes. Financial gravity is the most compelling argument for why this is happening right now. In a public market that measures success quarter by quarter, imagine your competitor adopts this token-based architecture. They achieve a 90% cost reduction. Their margins explode. They can iterate on their product 5 times faster than you can. They have created financial gravity.
Because they can drop their prices or reinvest all that extra capital, and suddenly you look incredibly slow and bloated by comparison.
Exactly. You cannot compete if you are dragging a massive human hierarchy behind you while they are operating a frictionless, token-based system. You must follow their lead or you face obsolescence.
It's not a choice. It's survival.
It is economic inevitability, and that's why we have to reframe the narrative. People want to call this a disruption or some tech utopian dream. It isn't. It is simply the logic of shareholder return meeting technological maturity.
Right. Boards are rational actors.
Right.
When you are dealing with high labor costs globally and hyper-competitive markets, making the switch to cognition as a service isn't malice. It's math.
It's pure optimization. Why would any rational actor not make the switch when the output improves so drastically and the costs collapse?
Which really forces us to confront the new reality. The org chart is flattening. The token ledger is genuinely taking over the balance sheet.
And it leaves us with a very different corporate landscape. We are moving toward a highly concentrated core of orchestrators commanding vast fleets of autonomous agents.
It makes you wonder what happens to everyone else. If the corporation only needs 25 people instead of 1,000 to generate the same profit.
That is the structural compression.
It fundamentally severs the link between corporate success and mass employment. Which is a perfect segue into our next deep dive.
Yes, episode 10.
Next time, we are exploring corporate loyalty to profit, not labor. We will be examining the final collapse of the traditional social contract and looking at exactly why jobs are becoming an increasingly irrelevant metric for the corporate bottom line.
It is a profound shift in how society interacts with enterprise.
It really is. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Stay curious. Stay systemic.